Okay, guys. So this is Convo. We got a special guest today, Artur.
Good morning, listeners and viewers. My name is Artur Grzesiak. I'm a graduate from Wake Forest University.
Okay.
Quite excited to start on interesting topics, but I don't know.
Okay, so that's Artur.
Marco.
Awesome. And we got Piotr back.
And Piotr is back like after 2 weeks break.
You had like pneumonia or something. So, guys, how did you guys react to the sad news that Trump is not a Russian agent? Marco?
I still think that, it wasn't conclusive that he's not a Russian agent.
No. Here we go again.
But I still think that...
You think Hillary would do a better job?
Honestly, I think she would have done a better job. But I still think she had a lot of good policies that, like, Trump is like, let me just, taxes and wall and...
Okay, don't shift the conversation. We're talking about Mueller Report that showed nothing. Now all the Saturday Night Live and late night hosts are saying like,
we didn't find any
there's
smoking
something
gun, but there.
Oh, but you found some smoke. That's why. Artur, what do you think about
Apart
this?
from a collusion investigation, this was also a counterintelligence investigation that proved that Russians successfully did infiltrate not the administration, but the campaign committee in the Republican Party. So as a counterintelligence findings, we do have 40-odd convictions. We have a couple cases in court. So I think it was actually successful.
It was, but to be honest...
Well, depends for who it was successful. Like, I would say for the Democrats, it was totally disaster. It's completely unsuccessful to them. They were waiting for this report. Like, they were waiting for this report for the answers and what. And like, it turns out that actually Trump did like campaign by himself without support of Russia. And obviously, as you mentioned, like Russian did infiltrate the American political society. But we still have to remember that like the main thing, it was all about the Trump. And I think the good response is like the CNN and all of the media, as you mentioned, like you wanted to mention, like what is their response? Again, like it's the story, it turning out again like about the Democrats and what they are like having towards Trump. And it's, I think, more personally than politically.
I mean, it's definitely true that there have been, people found already, and there have been convictions, and people will be convicted on the side of the people who were also offering to help Trump and his administration, but they did not take it, even though they were offered. So, but in general, I think after 22 months, basically 2 years, that was a waste of money, of taxpayers' dollars, of manpower and time into something that effectively did not come up with anything that we didn't know.
Actually, I would totally disagree, especially when it comes to money. I think Paul Manafort was told to pay $45 million back to the state, and the investigation itself cost $25 million. So that means that the government effectively earned $20 million just on the investigation.
And
that's still not a good idea to make money off of investigating stuff for 2 years.
Yeah,
you're wasting money, and you're completely misdirecting something that should be being investigated.
No, they arrested 12 people that were either from lying to the government to tax evasion to not declaring themselves as a foreign agent. And those are serious crimes. Those are felonies.
And how does that get Trump impeached? Because that was the goal. That was the main goal of Democrats.
But I feel that impeachment was always a long shot and mostly declared by naive Democrats or people that are ideologically so different from Trump and the Republicans that it was always
but
it was always a naive
but
goal.
like I think this is like this type of wave of the social media where all of those people are surrounded by sort of this type of bubble of just the liberal thoughts, and they don't even think that they can face the other side of the political sphere, right? Like the same thing it was with a Trump. Like everyone was surrounding just by the news coming from the liberal side, as we are looking for the CNN, such as example. And then like it turns out that Trump actually won this election. That shows that the people are really close-minded these days. And like the same thing is like with the investigation. They are not looking towards like the positive aspect. They are just looking for the negative ones. And we still have to remember that as a president and like I think the main thing also, like apart from the story with Russian, is about this Trump and that he make this investigation goes hard by this FBI agent, like the chief, right, of FBI. I forgot his name, and like he's still like suspected for that, so he's still a suspect.
Yeah. Well, Comey, if like his actions essentially got like Hillary to lose the campaign as well, because he already come out with like a like basically he didn't want to do anything with.
He said his hand was forced because they were going to release the investigation, and if he didn't say anything at all. So
so he effed up basically.
And guys, we have to remember that like actually it's not the report about which we are talking about, but the conclusion of the report.
It's a summary, yeah.
It's the summary. It's not even the summary. It's just the conclusion. It's not the full report.
The White House released the summary of what is inside, but and now most Democrats are still and I want to too. I want to see.
I would like to see that.
I'll give Trump credit. He said he wants to release it too, which I think they should.
Yeah.
And if it turns
out but like actually it's in American law. I was reading like some news and like it says that it's American law that they cannot actually show the full report about whole the investigation. So that's I think also the federal problem already like with the law.
They can't publish Trump's own answers to the questions, right? They can publish the report. They can't publish his answers, which also is like a dichotomy, right? Because you will never know exactly what his stance on all of it was. But yeah, it's definitely a sign of moving forward for the administration, because they can finally put, let's say, this shadow behind and continue with the agency problem that Russia still probably has in the U.S., just like China, right? Like intervenience when it comes to social media is by foreign countries and nothing new, and I think it came as too big of a shock to Americans that was possible.
Yeah, and I think for like you said, is that Democrats now have to. They can't keep campaigning on, let's wait till the Mueller report, it's out. And you know what? You need to come up with issues and platforms that you can win an election with, and not just soundbites.
I think that's the problem of like all the elections which we see right now. Like most of the opposition, they are like not playing huge role in their program. They are not saying the specific things which they want to change. Usually they are just aiming towards the ruling party, and that's it. That's what doing Democrats. That's what doing coalition right now in Poland. That's what doing on Hungary, in every place in Europe even. That's I think like the issue which we are like have to face right now.
I mean, the current candidates that said like potential candidates like Beto, and you know I ride skateboards and all that stuff. Like I think he tries to appeal to the youth, but it doesn't really work. I mean, he's like at best, I said this before, he's like a top of the second tier if it comes to potential candidates. Like if, for example, Kamala Harris was gonna win, like she would campaign with Beto.
I think he's raised the most money.
He has.
So I mean,
but he lost against
impressive.
Ted Cruz. I mean. So,
but it's
I'm sorry.
It's still Texas.
Well, you'd be surprised because actually the when it comes to polls, a lot of in Texas, the people who come outside from Texas, I mean, there's a lot of people that live in Texas that are outside of Texas and they vote, they're blue, right? So you had a pretty even race with Ted and Beto. Yeah, actually.
The demographics of the state has been getting increasingly more Democratic.
Yeah, it's becoming more
but
purple.
It's still pretty.
It could be a swing state soon.
Maybe 20. Yeah, hopefully.
Well, it depends, right? So, but yeah, when it comes to the candidates, we have a mishmash of candidates like Beto, Kamala Harris, like Biden. Biden might get some attention in the first couple weeks, first days. Pocahontas, yeah.
But I would say, like, you know, when you're looking on the whole Democrats, like, do you see this, like, youth wave of them? They are not as the old Democrats, which we know, like, as you mentioned.
The only old Democrat is, you'd say, Biden. Everyone else is pretty.
Yeah, they are like new. They are you don't know what to expect. You don't know what to.
Well, Bernie is
and pretty.
Like Bernie and AOC basically is one wave.
But there is like Beto, I would say, is kind of more in that Bernie camp than I would say in the Biden camp. A lot of his policies are more like.
Well, what are one of his policies? He hasn't come with anything concrete from at least what I've been listening to his tour and stuff. He basically says, "Oh yeah, we got to change these things." I'm like, "Okay, what's your policy?" "Oh, just you got to listen to your voice of reason, bro."
AKA Pocahontas, she actually has
Elizabeth Warren for those.
Elizabeth Warren actually has like one. I think I'll give her credit. She has all these things right now, like the laws she wants to do, the changes she wants to make. It's like all pretty much out there. So you can read it, as opposed to like you said, probably Beto. I haven't really followed him because, like you said, he's still kind of in that B level. I don't think he'll make it.
He could be
to the candidate,
potential vice president.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all with that.
And we still have Trump.
Yeah,
That's
Trump
the
obviously.
He still
I
has
think
advantage.
the Republican, and now he has like 93% approval by the Republican Party,
Yes.
which is wow.
And I think it
That's
gives
pretty
him like
unified.
huge plus after releasing this report. It's like huge plus for him. Like he shows that he win with Democrats. Like definitely everything what like Hillary was claiming, it's like done. It's like in your face, I would say.
And they're still like fighting against it. I don't get. And have you
I mean,
seen-
like, no, that the truth is that apparently, like, the mails and all of this, like, apparently, yeah, that was released and apparently Russian took place in this case, but, like, apart from this, it's not true.
I mean, I think he'll run on this. Like, he'll always create this as a big, like, victory
sure.
for himself, which it is.
It is.
Because he's... but I think in 2 years, it's not going to be the main topic people are going to be talking about.
Yeah, but he did survive an impeachment, which the last case that this happened, it was Bill Clinton, and he lost an impeachment.
Well, because he lied to the FBI.
Yeah, exactly. So we see here a difference. That's Trump managed to survive it despite the overwhelming majority of negative information and feelings about him in the media and social sphere.
Well, have you seen how the media went wild when he wasn't tweeting for 2 days, and then suddenly his first tweet was "Good morning, have a nice day, that make America great again," and so the media exploded because of that. So what's up with that?
Yeah,
why does that happen, Marco? You're a representative of the American United States, so
it's a polarization of media and society in the United States. It's just everything he does is not good enough.
Because
to
he's
some people, and everything he does is good enough for some people. It's just.
What do you think, Artur?
I think he's a natural troll in that sense. As a politician, I think he's the most one that's out there and isn't afraid to, let's say, get into a rub-off with people that do not necessarily follow him or value him as a president.
I think he's just a natural.
Like no, but like when he can,
doesn't
but
pretend.
no, the thing
He's
is
just
like,
himself.
hence he is like the Republican. Like people think that like no, they are not allowed to be ironic. They are not allowed to do this. Like Democrats doing this all the time, and like no one can say think about it. And like when Trump like doing this kind of thing, and come on, what he said in this tweet, like it's nothing bad. Like to be mad at it. So
Well,
like,
I mean, he is a white male, so there is that reason. to
yeah,
be
the
mad at him.
political corrections and all of this is like we are like all the time like claiming this topic like in each our convo, like it's still going on, but like you cannot do anything about it. Like what you can do.
You could definitely feel a sigh of relief come out from the White House.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that the tweet was just a manifestation.
Yeah,
of
that
that.
was
It was
that's
just like, oh,
yeah.
I got away
Today was a
with
good day. Changed my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of situation. So what do you get right now? When I'm looking at America, I don't see a wave of nationalism as that you would see all around the world right now. Right now, you see this kind of wave of nationalism, a positive nationalism, of course. But in America, you don't really see that. You see more of a division because what I realize is that for some reason, for the Democrats, America is not a really good place, and for the Republicans, Americans feel that it's a perfect place. So why don't we see this kind of unified movement in America anymore? Why is it always divided?
I wouldn't say it's that divided. I'd say it's divided that because of maybe it's part of it political corrections, part of it's this this change in whereas people see coastal elites as opposed to the middle country where they're not feeling as successful as say the coastal areas are. So like I guess like a lot of it's you look at France, it's going through similar things.
Yep.
UK with Brexit, similar things.
Well, with Brexit, kind of collapsed now.
Yeah, but it's what led up to Brexit and what same thing led up to Trump winning. It's like
So
I think it's very similar.
So
It's in terms of just like this disenfranchisement, you're not feeling like the politicians are really representing you. It's just like Trump, he is what he is. He's not faking it. He's like you said, he's not pretending to be anyone but himself, which people really liked, or some people really hated because of who he is. He's one of the things that will I think help him when he runs is that the promises he's made, he's pretty much kept.
And there's a question to you, Artur. Where do you think the deterioration of that social fabric has begun? Do you think it began more under Trump or under Obama or even before?
No, if we look at the data from 2008 and 2018, you can see that in 2008, both Democrats and Republicans had a lot more overlapping values and policy goals. And then it has divided itself in 2018 a lot more, so it's a lot more polarized. What I think the factors that caused it the most are, first of all, the lack of increase of real income since the 70s. So since the 70s, people have been earning more, but things have been costing more. So in reality, they earn pretty much the same minus inflation. So actually, they're earning less than their grandparents did, multiplied by housing costs, everything. So that's one. Second factor that I do believe is huge in the U.S. is a generational divide. Each generation in the U.S. has its own very specific definition. People associate themselves with it, and I feel that now we have a mixture of the liberal revolution, let's say, elders, and the millennials, who both have similar values, but now have become a lot more of a vocal crowd through social media and are very much against the traditional conservative, especially Southerners, that thanks to many years of Republicans in power, have been able to be part of the administration for both Democratic and Republican presidents.
What is your rebuttal or response to this?
No, I think you're
quite
the most fair. Yeah, you're right. I think when you look at what made Bernie Sanders popular, what makes AOC popular, or such a polarizing figure, is that she's pretty much saying that she doesn't see capitalism working for a lot of Americans anymore. That
How
it's,
so? Because she has no idea how economics work. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but she understands why people are upset.
Yeah, but feeding them lies is not exactly
I don't think they're
the
lies.
Green New Deal is not exactly the response or the solution to all the problems that people are currently having.
No, but there is issues with global warming that this administration hasn't really taken up. There's issues with
how?
Access to education, which education continues to go up in the United States.
What about global warming? U.S. has been the #1 reducer of carbon emissions in the world right now. And so how?
Yeah, and
how
if we are talking about the global warming, let's face the facts. Actually, Americans trying to prevent that. Let's look on the Silicon Valley, for example. It's the California. That's the perfect example. I mean, apart from the political sphere, that's the perfect example how America can develop. And when you're looking for California, it's compare this to China, and why no one is against China? Why the Greenpeace is not talking about China that loudly as about Americans? Yet because it's Trump, and that's the thing. They're always gonna find some weak spot towards him. That's always gonna be their game, I would think.
But in China, they we saw a documentary recently where they don't really know who Trump is, or they like him actually.
I mean, no, but this survey was made before he became a president. But actually, the thing with Asians, they don't paying attention actually to the European or world politics. Yeah. It's they are really paying attention just to their own societies. They are collectivists. They are looking for the central power, and that's it. And they are not looking all around.
They're very xenocentric, centralized among themselves.
Yeah.
But an interesting fact here, China is winning the race around the world when it comes to electric cars. They have the most electric cars in the world, made by their own production, obviously copied from Tesla and so forth. But they do have the most of them, so maybe they can definitely see the impact that they have had on the environment, or at least how unlivable their cities have become.
Yeah, they know that they have to they still developing, and they need a good environment to still develop and keep this economic growth, which they are still having, because since 2010, I think they are dropping slowly down because of the problems with the population, because of the problem that population are getting old because they don't want to have kids anymore. It's not about the one-child policy, which was taken over 1 year ago by the Xi Jinping. So the thing with Chinese, it's that they see they always have this long-term policy. It's not in the United States that that's why it takes time, but when it takes time, it also gives results, good results. So,
do you think that China is becoming the new leader, the new superpower for Europe, as opposed to where U.S. was this kind of fallback for Europe? It was the very close relationship with especially Western Europe, whereas China's now moving in. What happened this past week with Italy, where they've signed this Belt and Road Initiative, even though the EU is kind of against it. Now he's heading to France, and France and German leaders are now meeting with him. Whereas with Trump, they've kind of, I feel like, shied away from the U.S. and more leaning towards Europe as a whole is more leaning towards China.
I mean, I think China is filling in certain gaps that the
But
US
like-
is unable to fill in.
But you know,
Europe,
it's like about the
when it comes to, for example, infrastructure, when it comes to industry.
Yeah, but the thing like with this infrastructure and the whole Belt Road Initiative, like let's we look for example Italy. You give the perfect example there, like the accessing the Belt Road Initiative, but you know, and not everything is like for free. And like Chinese building these infrastructures, they are building this with the fund of the Chinese fund, and this is loans to those countries. And let's we face the government of Salvini, it's on debt because of their social policy. They're like on really debt, and right now they are taking other loans to build the infrastructures for Chinese, and actually those investments made by the Chinese, they are fully made by Chinese. They don't employ Italians or like the country hosting countries. All the companies are Chinese. Even the like whole machines are Chinese. Everything what is there is Chinese investment. So like actually the country, what they can gain, it's after from the effect of this particular investment. Like let's we face Africa. Like I'm always saying, it's like it's easier to give like the fisherman a fish, but if you're gonna teach him, like if the fisherman gonna learn how to fish, then he's gonna feed himself. And that was the problem with Africa. Like America sent it like by over the American aid, like huge amount of money for the hospitals, schools. But what Africa needed really, it was infrastructures. And that's why, in my opinion, they were like specially slowing down this continent in developing, because like without the infrastructure, you cannot make the proper developed country. And that's what China is giving them. But also like let's we look on Zambia, there is like already the anti-Chinese movements over there, because they know that China wants to own the world as Americans did before with their dollar. So I would say that like yeah, we see this like movement, as you mentioned, towards China, but I wouldn't say that like we should be really happy, because we changing just like the two hegemons. Like the America was one hegemon, yeah, right now it's changing that to China, but he's still like the hegemon. We have to remember that they always claim that they are getting back the position which they had. They never said that like, yeah, we're getting there. No, they always saying like we were there before you colonized us and we're gonna get it back there. And right now they feeling the opportunity to it, because like in the memorial of the not Mao but the other, oh my damn, like the big reform maker in China, in his testimony, like it was made that like China like has to wait for the opportunity and then attack. And I think like now it's comes the times to do that.
I totally agree. I also think that when we look at Europe's strategy to counter China, Europe has been particularly divided. On one side, we have NATO and the military industrial complex saying that, yes, Europe has to reassign, redevelop its military intelligence capabilities to counter China's actions. On the other side, we have Europe and China cooperating together to capitalize on the American-Chinese trade war. Today was a good example. China grounded all of its Boeing MAX planes and signed a deal with Airbus to buy Airbus 300s.
Yeah, but have you seen it, like how like they are working, like stopping the airbags, the how you call this, Boeing, yeah, like stopping Boeing in other companies, it was taking like weeks. Chinese did that in one day. Just because they're owning like most of like the companies like there, they are like usually like owned by the government, those big ones such as Huawei, Lenovo, the airplanes and everything, like they own that. So like it takes like one day to like put it out like all of these planes, and right now they're signing up deal with Airbus. I think that they are way more effective when it comes to these like situations where there's no need time. They know always how to act in these kind of situations, which I think like the Americans, they do not, and that's why they failed in Europe. For example, like with the crisis of with the refugees, right? We needed like quick reaction, and United States didn't provide like any interest in it, right? So that's my opinion to when it comes towards this division between United States and China, and I'm totally agreeing. It's like Europe, it's in the middle spot, like between United States and China, and I think we are this wild card, and who we gonna pick, like this hegemon gonna win.
Yeah, I personally think that when it comes to Chinese influence, so to speak, in Europe, it's not really gonna infuse into the social fabric of Europeans, because I feel that we're closer ideologically, culturally, and fundamentally when it comes to
we are
principles.
individualistic society. That's what makes us different. Like
we're closer to the Americans, and so whenever we don't get a deal with them, it takes it's sort of a consequence for us. It's sort of this emotional damage for us, that we thought we were friends, this kind of attitude. But I think when it comes to China, I think we look at it more materialistic. We don't look at it as we're therefore kind of buying that Chinese culture and stuff like that. No, I think we think of China more as just as the goods, as capital.
But
we don't think of it as a culture that
but
we're
they
buying.
do look on us same. Like, I mean, like, they are also westernized. Like, they love American culture. Like, yeah, on this I can totally agree that there is any proposition of the social life better than proposed by Americans. Like, I don't imagine Europeans getting the social life presented by Chinese. Like, it's not gonna happen, because like when you're gonna look on the pop culture, like, come on, what movies we are watching? Like, do you watching like the Shanghai Movie Awards or Oscars? Like, do you watching the new movie of Marvel, or like the story of two kung fu fighters like in China, right? Like, this culture, it's always gonna be winning with China. But economically, like we are talking right now, when it comes to the economy, they have better proposition for now for Europe, I would say. But I would be afraid, just like with this Belt Road Initiative, because whenever Xi Jinping comes to any country, he always says same, like, yeah, this is the main goal, you are the main spot of our like plan, like we're gonna support you fully. Like, he's saying this to everyone. Like, it's just like the story which he's selling to every country, and every country buys that because they need Chinese money.
I agree. I think he's going to a lot of countries that are desperate right now, and like you said earlier, the Chinese are kind of pouncing now on the opportunity, because U.S. is kind of taking a back seat to its previous role as, you know, the financier or the military juggernaut. And I think, but if you look at long term, hopefully the U.S. compared to Chinese political system, I think in the long term is far stronger than this Chinese system, which, yes, it has benefits that it can react quickly to changing dynamics. But in the long run, I think it's a far more representative system of government than this one party system, which is purely what the elites in China want and not what the billion people.
I would say that, like, yeah, the good point is that you mentioned that China saw the opportunity in United States, because I think what United States losing and what Trump, I think, not realizing yet is that, check the news. Most of the news right now, they're all about what's going on in America, not what America doing outside. And instead of like focusing on the war with China, like the economic war, they are focusing on these dramas around the Congress, around the past of the Trump, like right now the report, and they don't facing the real problem, the real takeover which is happening in the international sphere. I mean, like, yeah, they are still living in this dream that always Chinese, they never gonna get this power when it comes to the services, such as Google, as I mentioned before, the Silicon Valley. But Chinese, starting to doing well. They are not anymore copying anything, because that was before 2010. Because when you wanted to get on the Chinese market, you needed to be joint venture with another Chinese company, and that's how they were like getting the technologies. If you wanted to go on invest in the Chinese market, you needed to be associated with another Chinese brand. But like right now, after 2010, they got that much knowledge and know-how that they don't need this anymore. Like, even when they are looking for the workers, like foreigners, they are looking for the specific jobs. Like, really, they are not looking for the builders or something like that. They are looking for like the really specialists in IT, in engineering, in biotechnology, and as well like the biotechnology and their way of like doing this. Of course, it's crazy, because this what we are not allowed because of our moral standards claimed by the European Christianity culture. They don't care because of this government. They doing researches which we are not able to do because of the political correctness, because of the ecology and all of this sphere. So they have this advantage which we won't have because of our culture, because of our system.
Coming back to the Belt Road Initiative, when you look at, obviously, which countries are going to be involved, we can see there's a formation of a clear axis against liberal U.S. and European values, because China, Iran and Turkey are the three biggest actors in the project, and the three of them can unite also the regional partners to really create a economic and political counterforce even to the UN Security Council and then to NATO itself. Furthermore, a possible opening of the Northern Passage over Russia for ships would then totally cut out the U.S. Naval supremacy that the U.S. has in the South China Sea and in the Pacific, which also then undermines one of the main U.S. doctrines when it comes to military power. So this, as a political and economic project, is something that could totally revamp the world that has been dominated by Europe, dominated by the Suez Canal, by the Panama Canal, and by European shipping.
Let's move from global news into a bit more domestic. Let's explore the concept of Robert Biedroń going as the candidate for the Euro Parliament. What do you think about that, Artur?
Could you give a little bit of history or some?
Okay, so he's the leader of the new Spring Party.
Okay.
In Poland, and there was a lot of hype around him, especially in the youth, because he happens to be a homosexual, and that seems to be super important nowadays. For some reason,
and quite successful mayor of Słupsk.
Yeah, quite successful during the elections.
So, what do you think as a candidate? And the question is, would he be a good candidate? And therefore, shouldn't, with all the promises he give, is it right to him to leave to the European Parliament and not stay here as the leader of the Spring Party?
I quite think that a European Parliament move is very smart, because I don't not think that he would amass enough popularity in Poland itself to make an impact in the Parliament. I am very interested in what constituency he'll be running for to go to the European Parliament, whether he will run in Warsaw, in his home district, but I do believe it's a good move, and we can see a shift in the Polish politics where more and more successful or interesting or future-minded politicians move to the European Parliament, because before it was a place to send the rejects from the party, and so they don't mess around at home and just click the button in Strasbourg and in Brussels. So I view it as a slight generational shift and a declaration of importance and interest by Polish politicians in the European politics.
But now it's an interesting thing you said, that we would send all the rejects, but do you think it has reversed now, that now in domestic politics we have the rejects?
I wouldn't say, we have, like, for example, we see on the party Law and Justice, like all of the rejects from them, like from their failed government, right, the whole government of Beata Szydła, it's right now like going to the Euro Parliament, and I think that's the worst what we are doing in the Euro Parliament. We are not sending the experts. Like, let's see on the structure of the European Union, right? If you want to work for the European Union and you are not associated with the domestic policy of your country, usually you gotta be an expert, and those experts, it's like really hard path to get in the Euro Parliament, the the European institutions, in total. So when we are sending their people which they are incompetent, like, to complete this such a task as a representation of our nation among other European nations, then we really fail. That's our image, like, after, like, among the other countries, and then we are like really surprised when we don't have investments, when actually like the countries and our neighbors like turning backs to us. Yeah, because like we don't have good representation in Euro Parliament. Euro Parliament, it's not something what was in 2008. Now they have way more power than they used to have before, and right now, like, this is our opportunity. And actually we have to mention that we can get like way more seats in the Euro Parliament, hence the UK gonna leave it, because that's what is in plan. Like half of these seats might be kept for Serbia and another accessing countries, and 33 seats, because if I'm right, it's 33 seats. So 33 seats like can be divided among the countries, so we're gonna have more voice in the Euro Parliament.
What about Poland, though? What about politics in here? Because it's great that we're being represented, for example, by Tusk, in the European Commission.
He knows this from inside.
But
that's
then
why
again,
he was
we have politics here who say like, oh, he is not a representation of Poland. So I think it's
Like
good that we're having prominent politicians going, and it's because it's way more. They're going to be way more successful in the Euro Parliament or European Union than they're ever going to be here. Plus, the amount of respect they get is phenomenal. But the point is, what about politics here? If we're sending all our best, let's say, abroad, then we are left with the so-called, periphery.
No, but you know what I would say? I would say that, like, when you're looking on the Polish politicians, like, and Biedroń specifically, and his promises made on the program of Wiosna, like, I think the response, it was not this what he expected. I think he was thinking that he gonna get like a bit more. Like, it was anyways, like, people really, like, were glad to hear this, what he was saying, but, like, I think he overestimated, like, his promises with the reality. Because when you're gonna look on his promises, like, most of his program, like, points, I didn't even see how he's gonna make it that, like, looking on the right now, like, the current situation in Poland, I didn't saw, like, how he's gonna make it. And I think he realized after this response of, like, the society and another politician party, also the coalition, that, like, he won't be able to create, like, the good coalition with them. Like, they are, like, too divided between to make the coalition. That's why I think he's running for the Euro Parliament, because he don't have other opportunity. And by the way, like, in Euro Parliament, you meet people, you are, like, surrounded by the other nations, which you can after, like, be, like, when you are, like, I think anyways in European Union, everything what it's, like, important, the most important is who you know. I mean, like, it's also from the personal experience, because I had a pleasure to have a lecture with the Rafał Trzaskowski, the current president of Warsaw, and he used to work in the European institutions. And usually he says that, like, yeah, that's what it's all about in European Union. It's about who you know. So, like, actually looking on our president, like, who actually he knows? Like, who actually he knows from his past? For example, let's we look on Tusk. Tusk gained his power and, like, the position in which he is because, like, of the 8 years office as a prime minister. Like, everyone knew him in the commission. That's why he was chosen, because that is all about. Like, the habits of this politician. What, like, this is current policy of this politician. The history of the policy and diplomacy of the given country, because, like, you keep cooperating in the European Commission. Like, the prime ministers meeting like sometimes 3 times a month. They know each other. It's not like the another world politics, like, for example, Trump, which, like, Andrzej Duda see, like, once a year, or, like, once or 2 years. They are seeing each other, like, each, like, week sometimes. So I would say that, like, it's all about this, like, who you know. And when you know someone, then start the policy in your country. Because, right, like, I'm gonna bring it, like, no man is an island. And, like, right now, Poland is an island on the European map. We don't have any support from any given country.
No, at least it's not honest.
Yeah, I mean, you have Hungary, I think, is a big support. But wouldn't...
No, but, like, actually, like, sorry, okay, just about the Orban. Like, Orban is completely different. Like, I mean, he's well known in the European Parliament. It's not like Kaczynski. It's not like Kaczynski, who is, like, unknown in the international sphere, but actually he controls the political sphere in Poland.
That's a very controversial statement, but,
But don't you think by sending him, say, if he does well in the European Parliament and he wins this election, would that help support his or other people, like, with more, say, out there viewpoints, or not as, say, mainstream viewpoints, like his viewpoint is not so mainstream yet?
I mean,
Poland.
his are very electoral sausagey. Right now.
But you say they win, then they still have their party in Poland, and maybe gain support because of how well they're doing, or well they've done in, say, a European election, say, versus, like, they lose, say, the prime minister elections. If you lose the prime minister election, you're hurt. Your party doesn't look good for your party either. But if you win in a national European election, it helps not only your party, but it helps your viewpoint of Europe as a whole.
That's an interesting observation, and I believe that, especially bringing up Trzaskowski, that this sort of political career, is a career of small steps and can be very beneficial. Wiosna as well is the first party since communism that kind of embraces more left-wing political and economic strategies. Anything left of center in Poland is still a bit taboo because of communism, but this is a shift, and also a shift that mixes in very, very liberal ideologies, which again are a bit of a taboo in Poland because of the nature of our society. So if this is in fact a strategy of small steps to make the Spring Party grow and not become a one-season hit like cookies, then I do believe it's a good strategy for Biedroń and for his supporters.
But like, do you guys know? Because I am not aware like what party in Europarlament he's gonna be representing. Is it gonna be EPP or
Koalicja he's under the coalition.
Is that a big thing? Like the party you're in?
I mean, with the party in European Parliament, it's different than in the national parliament, because in national parliament you have parties and they are like usually fighting between each other and usually they cannot cooperate. I mean, like in Poland, before like all of this situation with Smolensk, like the coalition and the opposition and the ruling party, they still could cooperate. Like now it's done, like it's impossible to happen. But in Europarlament, actually sometimes they are like, cooperating between each other, because on these given issues, like for example, you are Poland, right? You have to think about the nation, not about like, and Europe at all, not about just yourself. So like when you have, for example, like some, I would say like another one, like legislation on the ecological goods, right? Like on the ecological sphere. And for example, you are Poland, and then it's like from the APP, it's like huge amount of people like from the country of Central Europe. And we know that we have more problems with this like than the Western countries, and we creating coalition for each legislation. That's how it looks in Europarlament. It is not like the coalition like among like whole policy of the Europarlament. It's the coalitions is like on the given legislations, because like given legislations hits different countries and like everyone wants to benefit from it.
I just hope it doesn't turn into I hope for Tusk 2.0, as in like the a good representative of of the Polish spirit, of the Polish of the Polish basically diplomacy, and that's because that's very important. But I just hope it doesn't happen the same what happened to Tusk when he left Poland. He essentially left the civic party, Platforma Obywatelska, and it deteriorated, maybe not in its crew, in the representatives, but in the level of the discourse that they lowered to the level of the Law and Justice. They got into squabbles. They did so many unnecessary things politically. They went down to the same level as a response.
I mean, like I would say, like Tusk was keeping the level of the civic platform, and when he left, like the civic platform went without a leader. Actually, like they didn't have a leader, because I don't see like the Grzegorz Schetyna as a leader of this party. Like, do you? Like, I mean, like he's just like the person which hate law and justice, and that's it. Like really, that's his own policy. Like everywhere where he's speaking, either he's speaking about the constitution, ongoing topic, either he's speaking about the law and justice, and like particularly about Kaczyński.
I might say something unpopular. I believe that when Tusk was leaving Poland, or when he consolidated his power fully in the Civic Party, he purposely eliminated his most feared rivals within his own party. For me, always leader of the Civic Platform was Radosław Sikorski, and Tusk eliminated him almost personally, single-handedly, because there was a struggle for power between Platforma Obywatelska, between the liberals and conservatives within the party itself too. So if that is to happen with Wiosna, actually, I do not think it's going to happen with Wiosna, because there is just simply no second man in that establishment as big as Biedroń.
I mean, I think Wiosna is a kind of again 2.0, Nowoczesna 2.0. It's another response.
I wouldn't say, but like Nowoczesna, I would say but
it's
like
a wave of something new.
And we hope they won't fade as a Nowoczesna, because Nowoczesna, it was like supernova, like really bright, but like everyone was like so surprised, but then it was gone.
They have they have good people in the place. They have very intelligent people.
Yeah, they have very intelligent people. It's same with Razem, right? The party together. It's like they are also intelligent people, but as you mentioned, the Polish people, they are always associate like everything what is on the left side as the communism, everything what is liberal, like as you mentioned, like also it's like in our social moral like things which are like we cannot allow sometimes, like I mean like among the Polish society.
Do you see like civil platform or civil
Yeah,
NPO as cooperating in the next?
it's the same thing.
Oh, my bad.
That's just a translation. I mean,
Okay.
I really hope that they can pause their fundamental differences within the parties, such as like the Civic Platform and Nowoczesna and maybe now Wiosna, for the perspective of the future. And this is a thing in Poland. This is a thing in Poland in regards to the society, that we fail in many cases to see the potential benefits of the future. For example, the current Law and Justice Party won essentially it won on the 500 plus program, because if, for example, the Civic Platform would also have a similar program, they would probably win.
600 plus.
600, yeah, or
Went
501. You know,
Yeah.
but here's
That
the
works on polls.
because the Poles would they prefer to have 500 now in my wallet right now than all of the money from the program invested in the future, and that would the fruit of that would be way better than anything you bought for 500 zloty right now.
Man, but like
That's what I think.
But do you believe that these 500 złotych from like do you
500
no, but do you believe that these 500 złotych from like 2 years ago it's like still
It's
same?
still operating.
Yeah, but do you believe it's still like 500 złotych on our market with the prices which are like still going higher? Right now it's equivalent of the like I would say 400, and it's keep lowering because the price are going up because of the taxes which they are giving, because of the like they keep like stopping from developing our investors, our people, which they have like really good idea. That's what happened with graphene, for example. We were like the first people. We had huge potential for producing graphene, and what happened? The Law and Justice come because it was sponsored by the Civic Platform. Like it was cancelled all the project, and what Chinese figured out how to do it by themselves, and they doing business on it. And that's the problem of Poland, that we are stopping our own investment. We are stopping our own people to invest in other countries, to open up to Europe. We are just like keep focusing on how to survive on the Polish market instead of like being like have wise horizons, you know, and like government stopping them from this.
We can always count on Piotr to connect it with China. Now, let me lob a question for you guys, as we used to do. So I haven't told you about what I want to talk about now, so I'm going to force you guys to think, and since we're coming to a slight end, we can on a more positive note maybe, because you know the amount of serious news is really depressing lately. So I'll ask you guys a question. What do you guys think of the Polish social media crowd? And I'm asking specifically.
I know why he's asking this, because like we had.
Yeah. So Marco, you go first, because
yeah, go ahead.
We gotta drop some knowledge on you.
So I have no experience in this. Unfortunately, I don't read.
You never fought with anybody on the internet in Poland?
Not in Polish.
Except for me?
No, yeah.
Okay.
I enjoy reading your posts, but no, I have not had that experience yet. Unfortunately or fortunately, whatever.
Don't be experienced in that area.
Maybe one day.
Artur, what about you? What do you think about the Polish livestock on the internet?
I see you use the specific term for a specific reason, targeting me. I am always surprised how, and this I guess goes for every society, not only for Poland, how much there is vapidness and toxicity and poison. In
I think like,
but on the other side, let's also be very positive. I've come across both examples. People straight out just trying to insult each other for the sake of insulting each other, or people being very supportive and writing beautiful things and being open. I guess it depends on what kind of person you are, what kind of mood you're in specifically in the moment.
You know what I would say like about the specific like Polish internet guy? Like I think they hate that much the world that even when they are looking in the mirror, they hate themselves. It's that much hate in them. Like that's what I think like about the Polish toxic society on Facebook. But yeah, that's the truth. That's another side where like you see these like supporting groups each other in the comments that like, yeah, we are together, and they are like all of them, they are supporting given comments. And I know that Adam might bring it that, because last time I had the issue with my comment on the pretty radical website. It calls the Sebism, which I would say as like the Chav's National Radical website. It's fan page.
No, it's like urban.
Yeah, urban.
Shedlovo,
Yeah.
Radical. So urban, radically urban. Yeah.
Yeah, urban radical Chavs. Yeah, like something like this. And like I commented just given issue about I think Indonesia. No, it was about Malaysia, I think, or Thailand, and I mean like whole group of Muslims living in China. And I just brought my like own example of living in Thailand. And the wave of hate which like was given to me, it was incredible. Like it started from some homophobic issues like that, hence I was in Thailand. Obviously there is nothing else to do than having sex with ladyboys. Then it drives to this that I'm just an idiot and they are really smart because they are reading some radical newses. And then, like, as the knight on the white horse comes two guys, means Adam and Artur, and they saving me from the given situation. But like, yeah, it was pretty funny. I mean, like, I saw for the first time that huge hate in Facebook. Like,
I mean, I don't understand what's the whole entire argument that you're therefore a worse human being because you are accused of enjoying the company of other men. Like, to me, that's just suddenly so weird. Like, oh yeah, well, your argument is invalid because you are gay. Like, to me, what kind of argument is that on the internet? In Polish internet and society, we usually use homophobic slurs to diminish. Oh, and when someone makes a grammatical mistake, then your argument is like invalid. It's completely
yeah, that's true. If you are gay, if you are like gonna make some grammar mistake, if you're gonna like just miss like the one date, it wanna be like the correct, then you are like your whole argument. You can write it like the whole essay by a professor, like approved. Like no, you are like done because of this. And then it's like the comment below. It's like, for example, I won't use the pejorative voice, but I would say like acting gay or something like that. That's the comment of the person like which commenting after your arguments. So it's like it's really toxic place.
It is.
Same thing in the U.S. It's not only Poland. I think there's a lot of that. It's dividing the U.S. It's like these. It's either you agree with us or you're gay, you're idiots, and it's like you're not really having you're either not listening and you're also not really giving any good points for people to change their mind on towards your viewpoints.
I mean, I really like, sorry, I'm gonna just briefly say, I really like how we have this kind of unity when it comes to the internet. So whenever you see a song on YouTube, then the first comment under it is like, where are all these Polish people coming from or something? But then we have
it's like Polish taking over this video.
like łapka w górę in Poland. So it's
it's like give me like Poland.
But I don't get, like, we have a massive trollery society because you see so many people deliberately creating fake accounts just to troll people. So I recently have like in my suggested I have like Jiki Jik, which is like wild boar, and like I see all his comments and he's like, oh yeah, well that's because you're stupid or something like that. Like,
and I think
so people do it deliberately to just, you know, spew hatred out there because for them it's funny, but sometimes you're just so confused by what's the point of that.
In my own family in the U.S., like how Trump has created this kind of issue, I had one cousin who wrote this like, give me one reason not to have a wall. And so I had another family member who wrote this long reply to it, you know, outlining very well-written response to why they...
Yeah.
And they blocked each other.
Okay. Well,
and that was the result of it.
Clear.
I was wondering if you had any experience.
So social media, in fact, diminishes conversation, diminishes contact between...
I mean,
like a bubble.
I mean, like the social media, like the first users, it was like the Arab Spring. Like that's what can be brought in, because then started like all the political sphere, like... You know, we look even on the elections. Before, people didn't care at all about the policy. And after Arab Spring, when actually people realized that, oh, I can use Facebook and like spread my ideology and arrange the protest and everything, like, then it turns out like, yeah, we can use it that. And that's why, like, for example, right now, the prediction for the election for the Euro Parliament in this year, it's like around 45%, when like the previous election it was 23%. So actually it's good that people starting to participate in the political life, but also we have to be careful with Facebook at all, because when you're gonna like look towards what's happened during the Arab Spring, then you're gonna see like some sort of like continuation. It's like first they arrange protests, then like the government comes and starting to sending fake news. But what was the result? Facebook, it's good to make the protests, to create the revolutions, all of this. But just this, to create a state it's impossible to make it, like to create the legitimate state. And in these times when, for example, the Israel is starting to creating something called ADL, where it's gonna be looking for the hate in the internet given by the Israelis and the Americans, that's weird, because like, you know, they're starting to controlling us and what we can read in the internet, the source of the knowledge right now among the society.
Israel is known for its control.
But I don't think it's fair to compare Europe to Arab Spring. I don't think you have the same type of governments, repressive governments that you saw in North Africa and Middle East. But I mean, I think that it's good to see that more people are politically engaged.
I mean,
Even if
but
they're
it
on
has
the
to
wrong
be
side.
healthy. It cannot be like, I don't understand the hatred towards another fellow of your society, just because you're. It seems to me that political affiliations are more important than actually like identity and stuff like that, which is weird because our greatest loyalties lie with the people around us, family, friends, and then community.
I'm going to bring this down to maybe a more kind of philosophical level when it comes to disagreeing online. It's a lot easier to disagree with someone if you don't have to look them in their eyes. It's a lot easier to spew hate. It's a lot easier to be interrogative. And overall, it's a lot, I think, it releases stress when you write something negative online. I think that's how people, they must do it as some kind of therapy for themselves. So we should view also the internet as an instrument for people to voice their dissatisfaction because they just can't say so many negative things during the day to their friends, acquaintances, strangers, loved ones. So they do it online as some sort of reaction to that.
But do you think then it's a cowardice or more of like it's necessary?
I don't know if it's cowardice or necessary.
Because I agree with you, because when usually the internet is so like, I would say people use it to do everything because there is no threat of physical violence, at least not immediately, right? So you can write like, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna punch you or something like that, but you don't it never comes to that. So I think also the lack of the immediate visible threat, which there is none, essentially, I think allows us to spew more hate than if, like Artur said, you would to say it to somebody else, because that can turn into a brawl. If you to say those things to each,
yeah, I mean, like, you know, the thing what's starting to remind me, like the political sphere, it's like the same thing with the hooligans right now. Like before I used to see policy as like the gentlemen talking about the given situation in Poland. They can disagree, but they're gonna change the arguments. But right now, they looks like the freaking hooligans. Like really, they are like starting to like betting on each other, as you mentioned. Like the you don't understand like how you can hate someone like from your same nation. But that's what happening on the stadiums. That's like the perfect example. Like why you hate the person from the other town just because he's enjoying the players like from the other football club, right? The same thing's happening right now in the political sphere. Like the same thing. It's like they hate them just because they have different political views, the different ideology, and everyone should be like, okay, like that's your point of view, that's my point of view. I know that they rule our countries, but like if we're gonna compromise together, then we can bring some solution instead of like fighting and focusing just on the like war like between us instead of like giving the solution. Because I don't think that the people anyways starting to look for solution to it. Like they, as you mentioned, they enjoying that. They enjoy like spewing hate instead of like really like finding solution towards the situation in which we are right now. Sorry, like I came back again serious, but like.
So, guys, last thoughts, each of you. Marco, what do you think about everything?
I hope it improves. I hope that, it's good to have a conversation with somebody and hear what they say, and not just write something on the internet and then log off, or not even read any of the replies you get, and not always block people that you hate. Like you're not enjoying listening to or reading from. That it's good to hear their perspective and maybe reply with your own perspective from time to time, and have a healthy conversation and debate. And you have one mouth and two ears, and sometimes it's better just to listen. Sometimes, not always.
But you have two rows of teeth.
Okay, so about me, well.
What?
Well, to sum up, it's like I'm waiting for the releasing at least like the part of the report and about the Trump and his cooperation right now, non-cooperation with Russia. About a Facebook, let's we say it's like it's still gonna be going on. Like the people, I think the changes when it's like coming to among the society. Yeah, we are faster than animals, but we are still slow when it comes to our life, to time of our life. It's really hard to change. So I think it won't be like quick change, and I think the people starting to realizing how huge power have social media, and they starting to use it more and more. Like just look on your what surrounds you. Like everyone is on the phone. Like that's the quick access to what you think, I would say, and it's pretty dangerous.
Then I'm maybe gonna go a bit more abstract about politics, conflicts, social media, and that is that whenever there is a discussion and when people disagree, compromise is the only solution, but not the compromise that is forced on someone, but that lets both sides leave the discussion, the negotiation with their heads up high, because in the long term, that creates an inclusive and society that can cooperate together.
I agree, and my last thought is basically that when we have no direct rivals or opponents, at least in Poland, our greatest enemies are ourselves.
Yeah, we're better together than apart.
Yes, so
and that's for Europe as a whole.
My last thought would not be complete without Marco's comments.
Yeah,
and soon it's gonna be the Brexit, and that's gonna be the hot
and
potato
Pole
to
end.
talk about. Pole end.
Right. So thanks, guys. Thanks you for coming, Artur. Thank you for your time.
Cheers.
Hope to see you one more time at least. And I think we're gonna finish for now. So this was Convo. See you guys later.